The Guardian MX has made it into Star Citizen and is the most beefed up, shielded and armed up variant of the Guardians. But is it actually that good? How much do you sacrifice? How much do you gain compared to the other Guardian? How does this ship compare to an F8C, which I would take is the closest competitor? We're also testing its maneuverability and combat performance in various situations such as bunker turrets, which is always a great benchmark for a fighter, even a heavy one, to see if it can avoid getting shot, if it can take down those turrets, if it's being piloted well. So welcome, this is Manni as usual with an honest ship review here for the Guardian MX with a ship tour, ship fittings and stats, maneuverability tests and speed, combat versus high risk and extreme risk bounties and versus bunkers, maintenance cost, then a dogfight versus the F8C, and my honest conclusion at the end with the outro. So let's start off with the ship tour that already shows us one of the very important things that you're going to have to sacrifice when switching to the MX variant, the most expensive one, but also most powerful combat version of the Guardians. We're seeing this in the ship tour. At first we're on the outside, we have a weapons locker on this side of the wing. On the right wing side, underside, we have the ship storage, the external storage container where you can, I don't know, put in armors, weapons, and so on. There's a way to enter into the ship right at the canopy, or underneath the ball part where you sit as the pilot, but you can also get in from an elevator on the back, because the ship can be walked through. There's an interior to it, and I'll show you this in a second. One of the coolest features of the Guardians is, of course, this fantastic armor plating that closes in front of you and opens up in form of cameras, letting you see through. So right now, I'm heavily armored behind this glass as a pilot, protected from enemy fire, not only by the ship's shield, but also by the armor plating right in front of it. Right? And then you see through with the cameras. Another really interesting feature of the Guardians, of course, is this design of the thrusters. These ball thrusters that are able to make a way of moving the ship around that is very different from most other ships, but it also creates a problem in maneuverability that I'm going to tell you about later. Now let's first keep going through here. You see from the cockpit you come into this little corridor at which you have access to all the components. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. There's all kinds of components access. You can switch in and out shields and whatever things. There's the engineering terminal that is still not active. It says coming soon. And then here there is just the elevator. And what are we missing? You know what we're missing compared to the other Guardian? That's right, it's the bed. We cannot bed lock in this ship. That's a big no-no for me, unfortunately, because I really like the fact that the Guardian was a combat-capable ship, good shielding, decent maneuverability, great all-rounder, and then offering the option to make a quick bed lock so you can swap servers to your teammates, buddies, and just hop onto them, you know? Or hop out of a server that seems to be performing badly, you need to change it for whatever reason. You can do it on the fly. You don't have to go to a station and land there. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen with the MX. There is no back bed on it. Big disadvantage in my opinion. I feel like the bed would have been much better as a little option than some of the other things there, and it should have probably also fit. Honest review. Sorry, I don't like the fact that there is no bed inside, but this is a combat-focused ship, so maybe we can forgive that fact, and we're going to see later what other things you gain or sacrifice compared to the other Guardians. Now, the design is very beautiful. I like these heavier, sturdier-looking wings. Comparing those to the regular Guardian, they are a little smaller and thinner, and you see here now the biggest difference are 4 size 4s. As compared to the 2 size 5s that the regular Guardian has. Now, that offers you, on paper, a higher damage per second or damage per minute compared to the double size 5s. However, remember that larger ships such as the Polaris, Idris, and so on, they will basically no longer in the future be harmed by size 4 and lower weapons. You kind of start dealing actual damage only with size 5 upwards. So the regular Guardian actually has more potential to be used against larger ships such as Polaris and upwards, maybe also the Perseus, right? So keep that in mind. Other than that, we have the base loadout with 1600 DPS running the Rhinos here, which is also the setup that I would suggest running for private PvP combat and so on. We can, as usual, remove the coolers. We can get the ship shields from 10 to 12,000 with the right shields, and we can take the Chimera quantum drive that has the shortest cooldown time compared from those quantum drives that have good speed and efficiency, right? And then we usually go with the electromagnetic rockets, a Dominator in that case, and we have 1600 DPS with 1800 meter per second projectile speed, super fast, super accurate, exactly the right thing for PvP combat. Of course, you could go with doubling that firepower almost to 3000 with the attrition for slower projectiles, better for PvE, however, right? You could go with laser cannons, increasing your alpha to 2500 if you want to hit hard per shot, but your DPS will go down by another 700-800 compared to the attritions. Now, before we look into stats and maneuverability differences, we have 46, I believe it was, decoys, flares, decent amount, not as much as an F7A with like 96 for whatever reason. Crazy that it has so many, but it's a normal amount. You have 5 noise. The combat boosted speed 421. You reach that very quickly, 4 seconds, 5 seconds boost, bam, 410, right? Even reversing speed from minus speed, drifting backwards into positive max speed goes pretty quickly. Acceleration is decent. But here are the stats. Guardian and Guardian MX. You see that the Guardian MX has a lot more health of almost 90,000. That is so much. But speed-wise, it always lags slightly behind the regular Guardian and Guardian QI. However, the F8C is the absolute loser of the bunch with much less HP of about 40,000 and even falling below in all terms of mobility stats compared to even the Guardian MX. So the proud of the Navy, the F8C that is in this trailer for Squadron 42 and now described as this wonderful combat ship that any Navy pilot wants to get their hands on, actually ends up being the worst ship of all of them when it comes to maneuverability. However, it does get more damage output. The F8C can reach up to 3600 DPS when you put the Ardor attritions on it, okay? The salvaged ones. So we're now in combat, and I am being as thorough as I can with my honest reviews as well. As usual, this is a combat ship, so we're having a more combat-focused review right here. And my goal is for you guys to know if at the end of the day this is something that you might or might not be interested in. So we're doing a good job here against the enemy Vanguard, right there. It's not gonna live much longer. These weapons here hit absolute perfectly laser accurate, no matter what movement the enemy is doing. That's why hunting smaller ships, medium or faster ships is so good to do with these type of weapons. Sure, you have lower DPS on paper, but counting in the fact that every projectile or every shot has a good chance of hitting the target and is not flying out into Nowheresville because it's too slow to actually move and hit that flying target, then you actually might come out even on top in terms of how much damage you end up dealing in the end. And in the encounter later against the F8C, we have a pilot-friendly PvP encounter. This Guardian MX with me versus my friend in the F8C coming up. Unfortunately, he didn't have those weapons on. He had the attrition, so he was more PvE focused with his build. But we have that encounter coming up as well. You see here, in that situation here, the attritions would be the better choice. We have a large ship in front of us. It is not moving away. We could hit it very easily. And whenever something is easy to hit, you would want to have the highest DPS weapons, in that case, the attrition size 4. Now, keep in mind that the firepower of the Guardian MX, my friends, is as high as the Starlancer TAC or the Starlancer Max for the pilot. You literally have the firepower of a very large ship at your disposal in this tiny, heavy fighter, right? Just keep that in mind. It is an immense amount of firepower, and although it is slightly less than the F8C, it is still really impressive. 4 size 4 is no joke, seriously, guys. That is crazy. There are some things that just stand out higher. For instance, many people don't know that, I just found this tunnel here and there was some boxes, I wanted to check it out, but it gives me a time to say that. Many people don't know that the F7A actually brings a bigger alpha damage to the table than the F8C. The F8C has a more higher continuous damage output over longer engagements, with more energy being generated, more energy being stored altogether, but just emptying your entire volley in the F8C with 2 size 4 and 4 size 3s is more alpha than the F8C has with its 4 size 2s and 4 size 3s. So very interesting side information here, and in that spirit, the F7A also would have a lot more than the Guardian MX, right? We're firing against extreme risk target here, a few Carracks, which ended up being immensely stupid. I don't know what they were doing down there. They were just sitting down there and not really engaging me. They were just flying around in a circle. Gave me an easy chance to kill them, but it also shows how much effort is necessary to do that with the low DPS weapons. So again, if you're more focused around playing PvE with your friends, you land in their Idris, for example, and you just want to fly out, help them on your ship against whatever PvE target there is, then the attritions are probably the best choice for you. But if you are like me, constantly engaged in PvP dogfights against other players, then you would certainly want to have these weapons here on. Now, we're coming to the part with the turrets, okay? Again, this is a great benchmarks for testing light and heavy fighters, because the question is, can we take down those bunkers at all? Do we have the maneuverability to do that? My first approach was too far away. I got hit too much. I had to bail. Next time I did it better. I came in super low in a fast arc around the base. I keep getting shot in between. I take shots, so it's not like my F7A. In the F7 as a medium light fighter, I can just swoop around this base, never take a shot, because I'm way too fast for that in my circling around. Also keep in mind, I am playing this on a keyboard and mouse, so you might not see these ultra smooth movements that you can do with your joysticks, where you just lock in that one angle and you just conveniently hold that while sliding around the base. I have to work really hard here, tap, 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 tapping the Q button, or in that case the E button, rolling rightwise, to keep a roll going. And yeah, so not so easy for me in this case. It can be done. It's just much more button work. And as you can see here, those 4 bunker turrets didn't really have a chance. So this ship can certainly pull off the bunker routine and clearing the turrets. However, I also noticed that I got shot a lot beforehand, and the mobility is very critical. It is on the critical side. It's just barely able to do it. A little less mobility and you wouldn't be able to do it. I believe an F8C, however, can still pull it off slightly. You need to be careful though. Also, a little tip: if you want to take out personnel on the ground, don't do this. Okay, don't fire like that because it's hard to hit. What you can do instead, find any target nearby, like for example that Orza rover, take it into target, because now your conversion of your weapons is at the distance to that Orza rover, giving you an easy focus fire on one point, being able to just drop anything that's standing there. Of course, that can't be done if there's nothing for you to target, but usually there's always something standing around. Now, after I was here doing a couple of screenshots for maybe the thumbnail, I was just hanging out here, flying around, making a beautiful scenery for some potential screenshot, and somehow I started getting attacked out of nowhere. Didn't expect that, but yeah, we'll see what that happened. What's that about? Right here, I feel the shots coming in. By the way, you only have about 62 shots in your 4 size 4 rhinos, so that is not a lot of firepower, and there are no more weapons I can remove from the ship elsewhere to increase the capacitor a little bit. I would assume that maybe in the future there could be like an ammo multiplier increase, so you have maybe 80 or at least 90 shots, because the 60 shots are really limited. That is not much. But look, with the very accurate and fast projectile speed, hitting that mantis they're trying to surround me, absolutely no problem, right? The maneuverability of the ship also allows you to keep the targets in sight. Here's a Pisces. It's boosting past me, but it doesn't, or it's trying to, but I'm able to boost upwards, counter its movement, and basically keep it locked on the whole time. And if it wasn't for this server lag and snapping around on the ship, I would have had it killed much sooner. So, yeah, it is. I think this is a great PvP ship. Now, the biggest advantage that I haven't even mentioned yet, aside from the 2 size 5s that you lose for 4 size 4s. So on paper, definitely more firepower, but the biggest advantage is the more armor that I've shown you before, the 90,000 or whatever it was, and the fact that you have 2 size 2 shields. You have the same shielding as the F8C Lightning, okay? So no more are you running around with just 1 size 2 shield like the regular Guardian. So very important. Restock on the missiles, very expensive, but the rest of the maintenance, I mean the repair of my damaged chip was only 2,600, so very cheap. Maintenance almost non-existent, and with the Hemera drive you can reach up to 160 gigameters in distance when traveling, so it has more than enough quantum fuel for any kind of travel, usually even back and forth. So very nice. Now we're in Dogfight versus my friend and his F8C Lightning. If you like this this video here and my honest reviews, then please stay tuned. Tell me in the comments what you want to see next, and also subscribe to the channel, please. That would be amazing. You will also find in the description pinned comment my referral code in case you want to get into Star Citizen and you haven't done that yet. It is one of the most amazing games that I feel like exist out there, even though it's not finished and it has a lot of flaws, but it's a one-of-a-kind game. And yeah, so use my referral code because that will give you something and me as well. Now you see I've just dropped in a flyby the shields on my friend here in his F8C. The problem that he's got here is that he's running the attrition weapons. So he's PvE oriented, I'm PvP oriented, so that alone makes it a no way for him. This scenario is impossible for him to win. He would have to get extremely close to me so that he can play his increased firepower, which of course I can counter by just staying away from him, backstrafing, moving away, flying in a way where it's hard for him to come closer to me. And I can constantly hit him and place shots, whereas he has a real problem doing the same. And you can also see that the Guardian MX, every time I snap onto him just a little faster than he snaps onto me after we pass each other. That is to a part because of the slightly increased mobility that comes from the Guardian MX versus the F8C. And if I felt bad in this situation, this was not a fair encounter, and it is not something that was decided by pilot skills. It is something that was entirely decided by the base setups that the ships were using, and the F8C, although tanky, is nowhere near as tanky as the F8C, as the Guardian MX. So if he had the same weapons, just firepower-wise, he could not win that engagement. I simply have more than two times the amount of HP that he has. So here comes the finishing blow, and boom. That is it. He has never even gotten through my shields. So let's come to my honest conclusion, my friends. The F8C costs about $300, the Guardian MX $320. I believe both ships are reasonably priced. None of them are completely crazy overpriced, such as the Asgard, for example, that in my opinion was heavily overpriced for the performance that it gives you. Now, even with the included or mentioned buffs that are coming for it. But overall, you get a good all-rounder with the Guardian MX as a combat variant. It is sad to see that there is no ship. If you are like me and you constantly need to server hop, join your friends, help them in PvP real quick, or change server for other reasons, you're not going to be able to do that. If that's a big problem for you, then the Guardian MX will be we'll have this downside for you. The regular Guardian can do it. The QI Guardian can the QI do it? I'm not actually sure, sorry. But the MX won't be able to do it. But then again, so can't the F8C, right? It can't do it either. So now they're both in the same ballpark when it comes to that. The combat performance is insanely good. You have decent mobility, you have great damage output, you have very high shielding for the size of the ship. So you're going to be able to take a beating before you go down, and the craziest thing is it's 90,000 HP armor that it's got. Absolutely insane. You're going to be firing so much on those Guardian MXs to get them destroyed. However, keep in mind that a ship like an Arrow or a Gladius, if the pilot knows what they are doing, they're going to outplay you. You will have a hard time getting them in their sights. In your crosshairs to fight back, if they know what they're doing. Even with the rhinos equipped, if you don't have the rhinos and you end up into a PvP fight, chances are you're not going to be able to hit enemies very well in their fast fighters, and you're probably going to lose. However, you still have that crazy armor. You can kind of just activate quantum and jump away. You know, you're not going to be dropped that quickly if you notice that things are going wrong. So that armor is an immense pro for this ship, for sure. Aside from that, I think it's an okay ship to get. For me, green light to get it if you're interested, but do keep in mind the F8C is going to receive an F8A upgrade sometime soon. So if you have the chance to get the F8C, or you already have one, you're looking for one, there is a potential upgrade coming. You already saw the ship standing on the Invictus, and it's gonna be so much more powerful. It's gonna get an uplift on every weapon from what I remember, and probably better power plants, maybe shielding, armor certainly being improved. So the F8A will most likely be a much better ship than the Guardian MX is now. So that is something to keep in mind if you can wait a little longer and want to see how this turns out. We don't know how this upgrade to an F8A will be obtainable, if it's through Squadron 42, if it's through a playable in-game event like the Sino event where you were able to get the upgrade token for the F7A. Who knows? But once that is coming, that ship is going to be the more interesting choice. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you had a good time, and if so, then leave a like, comment, and subscribe. See you around. Manni off. Bye.